Hey guys, how you doing? Ron Zanat here. Well, this is build log 4 in my Monsta STH10 build, and I'm to the point now where I really need to get the motherboard back mounted on the tray with water blocks on it, so that I can then also get the GPUs water blocked up, and then start getting the rigid tubing laid out for the build. So a lot to be done yet, and I'm going to go ahead and get started with the Rampage 5 Extreme and the new Bits Power monoblock. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so first thing I really need to do is remove the MOSFET block, the I/O block piece. I think I have to remove the Republic of Gamers badge here, or this block actually, and also this Asus one here. Now, one thing you guys might have noticed, and I don't think I've mentioned on the previous videos, but I also went ahead and got a 500 gigabyte M.2 SSD. It's pretty fast. I'm going to run the benchmarks for it to compare it against the Revo Drive X2, the Revo Drive 3 X2 that I have, and also the Plextor PCI-based card, to see which is faster. I already know because I ran the testing, but I will show you that, guys, that in an upcoming video. All right, so let's flip this puppy over and see what we've got to do. So I think what I'll do is I'll start with removing the, I guess it's the south bridge, what you would call the south bridge, or the chipset block. That was pretty straightforward. All right, we have that block removed. Next one to look at, and also cleaned off the chipset with some alcohol. Now I'll go for, I think these get removed together, so let me put these over. Alright, pretty straightforward. A lot of thermal pads that are used for the MOSFETs there, and then really this is just a big chunk of looks like feels like aluminum with the heat pipe coming through it. And I think, oh, and then also this has got to come off too. So let me remove the power. All right, got them all removed. Now let me get out the pieces to and remove the packaging from them for mounting the blocks. So the first thing that they want you to do is mount the MOSFET block and the chipset block and cover first. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to cut some thermal pads and also find the appropriate mounting screws and spacers to mount it underneath. So let me get out all the right pits and get the thermal pads prepared, and then I'll come back and show you how it's done. Alright, so I have the screws out. There's 6 2.5 by 6 millimeter screws, and there's 6 spacers, 0.5 millimeter spacers. I've got those out, and I've got some thermal pad material, and they give you 2 pieces, which is great. It looks like I'm only going to need one. I've got to put one across these, and then there's a bunch of little chips down here that need to have them too. So what I'm going to do is cut off about the appropriate amount and basically lay down 2 strips. So we'll have these guys right here, I guess the chokes and the MOSFETs, are going to be covered with thermal pad. So I'm going to go ahead and measure them appropriately and then cut it. Now, using some alcohol, I'm going to go ahead and clean off the top of these guys here, since they had some pads on them. I don't know if they had any kind of residue left, and then I'm going to clean these guys off here too. Alright, and then now I'm going to apply it to, I got to peel off, there's a skin on both sides of these thermal pads. You got to make sure you get them both removed. Okay, next up are is this piece here, which is mounted directly over these with spacers and screws from the underside. So I'm going to apply some thermal paste on top of that first, and then make sure this is all clean, some alcohol. Now I need to be able to flip this over, place it right on that spot. So let's see how well I'll be able to do this. Looks good. Now, it's a good thing I have the M.2 SSD mounted already, because in order to service that, if I have to remove it, I won't be able to do it with this plate in place. So I've already had it fired up. I already have an OS loaded on it, so good thing that I was able to, I planned ahead to get that done, but I didn't know this was going to cover it up. But still, that looks great. I'm just going to tighten it up now, kind of like in a star pattern. So far, so good. Now, one of the things to note is that the instructions do identify using these small screws and washers on the MOSFET block set, but I just went ahead and reused the screws with the plate that also had the thermal pads and everything, are the ICs that are on the underside of the board. So, and they're the right size screws. They're the same. They just happen to be a Phillips head, and this is secured in there. So that's the plan, and I'm sticking to it. All right, next up is mounting the CPU block. Okay, mounting the CPU block is like any other. The only thing I need to make sure I have is the orientation of the block. So it looks like the logo should be facing the MOSFET block. So this is the orientation in which it needs to be in order to work the way to work with the mono block, because of the placement of the inlet and outlet. So I'm going to clean off the CPU since I had previously been using it with an H100i, and I'm going to use some Arctic Clean thermal material remover, which if you've watched my videos, I always do when I'm getting ready to do a more permanent mount on my processor. So I mean, I did wipe it off with alcohol, but you can see there's a ton of material, thermal interface material coming off. So I'll put some more drops on here. All right, now I'm going to use some purifier. You put this on, and then you rub it in, you let it, and you polish it off. Now while that alcohol evaporates, I'm going to put on the standoffs. Got it all ready. Next thing we'll use is springs, but I got to remove the protective plastic on the bottom. I warned you to remove it, of course. All right, so we have pristine block. And again, this is the orientation you're supposed to mount it in, with the logo facing this. But first you need to put some thermal paste on it, and I'm going to do that here now. And since the die is so big, I'm going to spread it. If it's an 1150 block, I would do just kind of the P or the line method, but because the 2011 die is so big, I want to make sure that it's fully coated. And since this is you know, all this is going to be under layers here, monoblock on top of the CPU block, make sure we got it covered. Okay, now we can put the block up. Next up comes springs. And then the nuts. Now before I tighten these completely, they're down pretty tight, I want to make sure that I have these aligned properly, so I'm going to put all these in. And the other thing that I'm going to do is I bought LEDs. Now, even though this is black, I think having some lighting underneath would look cool, so I plan to put some white LEDs in the block. So I'm going to still do that before I secure the block completely down. But right now I just want to make sure that I have everything adjusted properly and kind of just make sure that it's aligned up all right. So I'm going to put these down a little bit snug, but not completely. Alright, one thing to note, aligning this top to get all of the O-rings and the fittings lined up, you do need to loosen up this plate underneath. And also what I did is I also loosened up this plate as well too. So now that they have them aligned, I'm going to go ahead and tighten it down. So that's one thing to note when you are if you're going to mount this block. There is a little adjustment to get right, and also the CPU block, you got to make sure that you have that aligned. So I'd recommend, you know, getting it in there and getting the motherboard block ready, but I wouldn't tighten down all the posts yet until you make sure that you have this top block all lined up. And now there are a couple of screws that need to go in, but first I want to get my LED that I'm going to put on this block under here and run that first. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this. I'll be right back. Alright, so for the block I have a couple of dark side 3mm modular LEDs. Now the one thing I like about these is what are they? They're quite long. I don't have a tape measure here, but this motherboard is going to be mounted, so this is the back side, and this will be down closest to the bottom of the STH10, since I have a reverse layout. So what I'm going to do is run 2 LEDs, and then this is long enough that I can have them come off the bottom of the motherboard, and then I'll be able to dress them. So let's see if I can get this is going to be interesting. So looks like at least it'll stay in there. There's a tight fit between this block and where the LED gets inserted. Alright, there we go. Alright, there's one. And then a second one. Same deal here. Actually, I can sneak it underneath here. All right. Now before I seal this up, let me test these out. And I also have a splitter that'll join these two so that it can be powered by one 3-pin power connection. So right here is a splitter. It's also a dark side one. They're all sleeved nicely. They look very close, if not just like the sleeving that I have. So let me check that out, and then we'll go ahead and cover this up. Alright, so we have LEDs working, and I just powered them directly up to this ModSmart PCB that I have that I had bought with the plans of controlling LEDs with them, and in this case they work perfectly. So alright, so now it's time to put this top block on, secure it down. Okay, before I screw it down, just make sure, oh, no, those are in good. Those are in good. And the CPU block is in good as well. And we have a couple of Allen head screws that looks like we're going to screw into these blocks here, and they also provide a the appropriate tool as well. Now you don't want to over tight this to crack the acrylic, so I just got them in there tight. Alright, now let's see what it looks like. See if you can see any of that lighting. And turn off some of the lights around here too. If nothing else, it'll be backlit. So that's going to be interesting. The acrylic block here lights up, and you can actually see the other acrylic block. So that's going to be interesting. Cool. All right, so that's the mounting of the Bits Power monoblock. A couple of different ways to look at it with the LEDs going. All right, cool. I think that's going to turn out good. All right, next up, let's get things ready to mount some water blocks on the graphics cards. All right, so now before I mount the 980 water blocks on the 980s, I first want to get the frosting off of them. I don't like the frosting version, the frosted versions, but they only sell the full cover versions in the CSQ design with the smoke or the frosting on it. So I choose to remove that. They do sell one that is clear, but it's the mid version of the card. It only covers the center portion of the PCB, and I prefer to have a full cover block. So that's why I bought these, and in order to do this, there's other videos out there, but it's really simple. You first remove the acrylic from the block, and then once you have that off, you will take some 2000 grit sandpaper. It's wet dry sandpaper, and you can do it wet or dry. And then after you do that, you clean it off, and then what you'll do is you'll apply some quality. You don't have to use just Meguiar's, that's what I use, but apply some quality polishing compound using a terry cloth towel. And then you clean that off and you polish it off with a nice smooth, soft cloth. So that's how you get this version of the block, nice and clear. That's how you remove the smoke off of this guy over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So it just takes a little elbow grease, and the key thing to remember is when you do this, you will void the warranty of the block, and you got to make sure that if the gasket comes loose, you got to get it back and have it stay back in place when you reseal it. So, but I've done it before. It's not really a big deal. Just be careful. All right. Well, go ahead and do a fast forward of removing the frosting off some blocks here. Once you have all the screws loosened or removed, you then lift it off the block. And this is the one thing that you have to be careful of. You want to make sure that try to keep this back, this gasket in the groove. This is the first one that's come out this far, so let me get it put back in. Once you have it back the way it should be, as close as you can get it, I like to put it out of the way, safe. All right, so now here we have the block. All the screws have been removed, and I keep them in a little magnetic dish so they don't get lost. All right, and now what we do is we take some, I use some 3M 2000 grit wet dry sandpaper, and 2000 is what you want. Now some people do remove this badge. You can remove that. You have to pry it out. Be careful not to scrape the plexiglass, but there is a protective coating on there. That's what these lines are. So I do it dry. I don't wet the sandpaper. So it might take off the lines, but it leaves the badge protected. Now I have extra badges, so if I do mess it up I can replace it, but just be aware of that. You might want to remove it, and it is pretty sticky, self-adhesive, so you just keep it out of the way and you can put it back on without any problem, as long as you don't, you know, get it unsticky. All right, now here we go. Just going to get it on this sandpaper and sand the heck out of it. So, all right, I did this side pretty well. I have to clean it and polish it to see if I did enough. But right now I'm going to do the back side. So the back portion is frosted, but you don't have to do the piece that's cut out. But instead of a big giant piece, because I don't remove these standoffs, I leave these in place. So what I do is I have another piece of 2000 grit that is for like a sander. So it's a thin strip, and I use that in here. So that's what I'm going to do now. And the same idea, really just want to try to get all of it. So I'm going to do across the whole side here, then down here, and then in this area here, and then between the standoffs. Now I've got just a damp cloth just to wipe it down a little bit. Then we give it a final polishing, clean out all the holes with a Q-tip, and now come back to mount it on top of the block. But again, the gasket is critical, so we need to have that in place. And here we have the finished block, all polished. The badge replaced, and there's a coating on it. That's why it looks a little blue. I don't know if you can see that, but that'll come off. So that is the 980 CK block, the CSQ block from EK. And then we also have to do the bridges, or the EK FC Link system. I've already done 2 of them. Hopefully you should be able to see that. This guy is still frosted. I need to knock him out. And I'm not sure whether I'm going to use the triple parallel bridge. So I haven't opened this yet, or I might just use the Bits Power fittings with acrylic tubes between them. So I haven't decided that. So when I do, I will then polish that one as well, if I'm going to use the parallel bridge. All right, let me get this one polished up here, and that's it for polishing of the GPU water blocks. Then we'll move on to something else. And there we go. 3 full cover EK CSQ GPU blocks for the GTX 980s. However, they are not frosted any longer. They're crystal clear, so you can see everything that runs through them. All right. Now that we have these full covered CSQ blocks with the frosting removed and polished up, so you can see the coolant as it flows through it, much better. We're going to go ahead and put them on these GTX 980s. So I'm going to go ahead and do one, show you how it's done, and then we'll move on. All right, in order to install the water block onto the GTX 980, first, of course, you got to remove the current air cooling solution that's on there. This is a sexy, nice, high quality design, but in order to put a beautiful water block on it, we're going to have to remove everything here. So you got to remove these two screws right here that is on the end of the PCI Express bracket, because both of those connect to a piece of aluminum that's mounted to the body of the cooler. So we're going to get those out of the way. Next, we're going to remove all of the screws that are on the back of this plate. I'm first going to remove this nice, it's a very nice back plate, as a matter of fact, and actually you can install the water block with this same back plate on there. And its design is nice, it's got the barcodes, but the design of the back plate that I'm going to put on it is just the, you know, it's the one that is designed for it, just a clean, you know, black with the engraved GTX 980 logo on it. And then I'm going to remove, there's a little protective cover on that, but that's what it's going to look like. Let's get this plate comes off. Now once you remove those screws, this removes this back plate. And again, this is a very nice back plate, and you can, if you want, you can reuse this. So, but we're not. And now here, what you have is these. You have two screws here in the middle, and then the 4 screws around the GPU. So you're going to have to remove those as well. Okay. So now that you have all the screws removed, plus the 2 from the side here, you flip it over, and there's 2 power connections that are right here. So, but basically you're going to wiggle it, because the adhesive force of the thermal pads and the thermal compound is what's currently holding it on there right now. And there we go. So I'm just lifting it up, and then you have 2 power connections. One's right here, so I'm going to remove that. And another one is back here. And they just slide out, and you just have to pull them out. And so here you have the stock cooler with those thermal pads. And what I like to do is I like to remove the thermal pads that are already mounted in here, and place them back in the spots where they are on this cooler. And what am I missing? There's another pad somewhere. Well, anyway, it's not getting used, so put it right there. Then what I like to do is, to protect this, I pack all the screws up into a baggie, and then I take some shrink wrap to keep these pads relatively you know, moisture free, and I just protect them so that if I do have a problem and I have to return it, I can do that. And the other thing that I normally do is I'll also clean off the thermal compound that's on here before I pack it up. All right. Let me get the stuff out of the way, and then we'll get back to installing the cleaning and prepping the block. All right, now that we have the thermal paste removed from the GPU and also any residual thermal pad adhesive on the chips, I'm going to go ahead now and get ready. Basically what you need to do is cut the thermal pads in place. Now, one of the things that EK has done now, they actually have pre-cut the thermal pads that fit on the memory perfectly. They didn't used to do that. You used to have to cut them. So at least for the GTX 980 CSQ blocks, they have strips that are pre-cut. I'm going to go ahead, and in the instructions actually show you exactly where you need to put them. So if you go follow the instructions, they're fine. They actually indicate exactly where they are and what sizes you need to use. So these instructions are not too bad when it comes to applying thermal paste and the thermal pads. Now when it comes to screwing it together, especially if you have different back plates, well, we'll get to that because that can be a little confusing. All right, so right now, one of the things also that they've added, they didn't used to have this note, but they also suggest you putting some little dab of thermal paste on the ICs that are going to receive thermal pads. Now, it does two things. Number one, it helps to, transfer the heat to the pad with a little bit of thermal paste in there, and I'm just putting a little dab in the center. But the other thing it does is it keeps the thermal pad in place, so when you go to put the block on, they're kind of sticky anyway, but when you go to put the block on, they won't move. So, and again, use non-conductive thermal paste to do this. And this is MX4 I'm using. You could use MX2. You can use the stuff that EK provides with it. Do not use Arctic Silver or anything else that is conductive, because if it spills over, you can cause problems. I have have thermal paste applied everywhere. I'm going to need to put a pad. I've got some extra pads here, but I'm going to go ahead now and start applying the pre-cut ones that come from EK. And you just have to peel this top layer off. And then peel it off the paper or the backing. And they're perfect. They're cut right for the right size for this. All right, now that we have the pads applied as recommended per the instructions, now what I'm going to do is apply the thermal paste to the GPU. And what they recommend is to basically put it in a star pattern. So I'm going to do my best to do that. There we have it. We've got plenty of thermal paste now applied. Now the next step is to place the block on it, and you want to make sure that you line up the holes right over top of the holes of the board there. Make sure I don't have any debris on there. Okay, so now I'm going to so it's right above them. And what I like to do is, once I have it placed, I like to put it on top of the box that the block came in, so that I can do any finer adjustments and then secure it down. All right. Now, I've done this before on another block. Basically, the other thing I'm doing is installing this back plate. So this is the 980 GTX from NVIDIA's backplate, not the original one that came with it. And in order to do that, there's only certain screws that you need to be installed at this point. And then it actually, if you were to build it up, it would actually tell you to remove some of the screws. So I'm going to try to save you any of that, and I'll tell you exactly what screws you need to install and where they came from. Now, with the block, you're going to get a bag of screws and thermal paste and some O-rings and a tool. And then with the back panel, you're also going to get some screws and some washers that you would use with an Allen wrench tool. So now, basically, in order to install this back plate, what you'll need is the same screws that you'll get with the back plate, but they also come with the block. So they're going to be, you want to take 4 of the shortest screws. They're M2.5 by 4, and you're going to put it through the washer and the screw, and you're going to secure these first. So these are the 4 that go around the GPU. Those are going to, and I would just start them right now. Don't secure them really tight yet, because in case you need to make some little adjustments, you don't want to have one screw keeping you from doing that. So there's these 4, the ones that were spring loaded. All right, so now that you have just those 4 installed, you know, with the washer, you can go ahead and tighten them up, not too tight, but hand tight, kind of in a star pattern. All right, so you've got those 4 in there. Next up, what you're going to do is you're going to install, before you put the back plate on, you're going to install another one of those short screws. It's the M2.5 by 4. You're going to put through this top mounting point of the bracket, and you're going to get a nut that comes with the back plate, and you're going to go ahead and install that. So and actually there's no nut for that one. That one screws right into the block, so there's no washer. You just tighten him down. All right, so we've installed 4 M2 by 4s with washers and 1 2.5 by 4 without washer. Okay. All right, now that you've installed these 4 around the GPU, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to install another one of these M2.5 by 4s in this top corner. It just goes without a washer right into the through the bracket into the plate there. And then what you're going to do is you're going to these certain ones that I'll show you right now. These you're going to install also these small. They're 2.5 by 4s that come with the back plate. So this one right here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So in addition to the 4 around the GPU, you're going to do this corner one, this one at the top, this one in the middle center, and 1 in the bottom. And then also to secure this bottom bracket here, there is no thread. The block doesn't come on the other side, so you take another one of those M2.5 by 4s and you'll install it in here, along with one of the nuts that are provided with the backplate kit. So altogether we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 screws that are installed. 9 screws, 1 with a nut. These 2 over here have no washers, the rest get washers before you put the backplate on. All right. All right, now let's get the backplate out. All right, now that we have the block secured to the GPU, and we have all of the screws that you need to installed before you mount the backplates. The backplate has 2, 4, 6 screw holes to mount it, and it will be installed like this. Oh, sorry. It'll be mounted over it just like this. But one of the things that this backplate also provides is a very thick thermal pad, and you need to place one here to help cool the backside of the GPU circuitry here, and then also here for this area of the graphics card. So they're actually, this one is milled out to accept those ICs that are sticking out, and then this is raised. So this portion right here is raised, and it covers all of the back sides of, looks like the voltage regulators there. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these to fit. The instructions show you where they go as well, so it really is straightforward. And the fun part is actually cutting out a square and then trimming the corner so it fits in there. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one first. And I won't show you cutting, but I'll put you back on screen once I got it ready to go. One thing that might help you, looks like it's going to work out real good for me, is this pad that they provide is rectangular, and if you measure it right and you cut out the square that you need to trim down that fits right inside of here in the back of the GPU, well, basically what you have left is a piece that if you cut that thickness just right, it actually is the perfect width for the area that you need to put on here. Now you will have to cut a little piece more at the bottom and trim that, but it looks like it's going to be just exactly what I need, so I'm going to go ahead and finish cutting that. And it actually is perfect. It fits that just nicely. And then the last thing I need to do is trim a piece for the bottom here, and then you're going to have to cut a notch. There's a little notch to where looks like a screw hole goes, so I'm going to cut that down. Alright, so here we have thermal pad inside of the GPU space, and then thermal pad down the back of the voltage regulator space. So cut and trimmed, cut and placed inside. Now what we do is flip it over and place it on top. And then what you need to do is get out the, these are M2.5 by 6, I believe, and there are 6 of them. And then there we have it. Now we can remove the protective piece off of the logo. So there we have it, the backplate installed for an FC980 GTX CSQ with the frosting polished down. That's how you install the water block with the backplate. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm also going to install this FC link so that I can mount it onto the GPU, and then I can either go with the EK FC bridge system, serial or parallel, or from the top I could just still go with tubing, rigid tubing between them. So but I need to do that. In order to do that, it comes with the CSQ block. You got a couple of O-rings that come with it, and what you need to do is remove this one center Allen head screw from the block, and you're going to replace it with one that comes with the block. It's this one, long one right here. All right, and that screw actually goes into the block itself. It's not tapped into acrylic because that could break. But there we have it. And we have one GTX 980 with the CSQ polished down. We have 2. How about 3? Okay, now we have the point of the programming to decide on what water blocks to use for the RAM. So I removed the RAM off the motherboard before so I could mount the bits power chipset and block on the motherboard. So I have here the DDR4 rip jaws that we had before, and let me just take one out. Okay, now this is the stock RAM, Ripjaws RAM cooler that comes with it. Now you can buy this exact same memory without the heatsink on it, and it's a few bucks cheaper. They didn't have it at the time I bought it. So, but if you are looking to cool your RAM, and again, most people know this, that cooling RAM is really unnecessary unless you've got some server farm somewhere where these boxes are burning away. But really, for me, putting water cooling on RAM is just for the aesthetics, just for the effect. I love me some RAM bling, and depending on the build. So, but anyway, back to the RAM here. I need to remove this in order to mount on it the Dominator, the RAM Dominator module. So basically, you pull the skins off of this, and you mount this on top of it, and then once you have done that, it allows you then to use any of the water blocks that were designed for the original Corsair GT memory. And basically, you know that by the design. The style's got a couple of slots, and on top of here there's screw holes that allow you to mount these blocks on top of the RAM like this. So early on, when I was slowly putting together and buying the parts for this build, my original plan was to use this, and I've been using this for quite a while. Almost every single one of my builds, really, and a lot of the designs out there for water cooling RAM are based on this. So if you don't have GT RAM and you want to buy somebody else's, you can. You just got to remove their skins. You got to put one of these on there. Now I'll put a video link up below in the description for my review, and I've done this before a million times. I'm not going to take you through it in this video, but I'll put the link up so you can see that. So one is to use this on the RAM, and I had bought these CSQ, these are the ones that are frosted. I bought these on eBay pretty cheap, and what I plan to do was replace the top with this all clear acrylic one. So you can see that's beautiful, nice clear acrylic. So you just take off the screws on this one and replace it with this, so that you can see completely the coolant that's going through it. So that is one. So I would have you know, 2 modules in here. I have 8 GB DDR4 rip jaws, 4 of them for the total of 32 gigs. So I would use 2 in this bank here and 2 on the other bank here. So that means that this big black block would be saddled up on each side with one of these. Now that may look good. I'm just thinking there's just a lot of blocks. This takes up so much space that I don't know if that is going to be the best look for this. I think it just covers up the board a lot, and I want to show more coolant. Now obviously, since this is a black block, you're not going to see any coolant in this. By replacing the frosted top with this clear, you will see the coolant that I put through this, and I'm having black and red coolant go through it. So on this spot over here, probably what I would have is red coolant going through. All right, so I went ahead and finished mounting the RAM Dominator or the Monarch skins on all the RAM. So and again, I'll put the link up in the description so you can see how I do that. So they're all done for in there, and now I need to decide which of the EK blocks I'm going to go with. So this is the EK that's got the frosting on it. Now if I'm going to use that, I'll probably remove the frosting because I like clear. So that's one if you look at it. And then here's the top removed with the just the clear block. So which one do you think looks better? I think the clear block looks better, and I think what I'm going to do is, if I go with that one, I mean, I could remove some of the smoke off of that or the frosting, but I think I'm going to just go with the clear, and then I'm going to put the red coolant in there. So you're going to have, you got the red, the black here, and we'll see red coolant running in and out of these. I think that's going to look good. So that's what I'm thinking anyway. So let me go ahead and remove this and make it look just like that one, and we'll get them secured on there. And then the motherboard is pretty much done, I think, and ready for mounting into the STH10. So there we have it. We have the EK X4 style block on the top of with a clear and nickel on top of the RAM Dominator heat sinks for my Ripjaws RAM, and I even put a couple of fittings there just to give you a look with the shiny silver that I'm going to use. So I think it looks pretty good. Now the only question I have, and the thing I need to figure out really, is I'm going to put LEDs. If I put them over here, they're going to have the wires drooping down here, although they will be covered by the motherboard power. Or should I place it such that, I think it's like that, and the power cables run underneath the motherboard. I mean between the block and the motherboard block. So I got to figure that one out and get those run. Alright, so here you have a bit further along. I have the Dominator RAM blocks mounted on top. I have the LEDs installed on the inside, so they'll be lighting up the inside of the block, and I don't have any cables or anything hanging out from the outside, so I like the way that came out. Also on my Facebook page, somebody actually recommended removing the heat pipe from this shroud that goes over the I/O, and I thought it was going to be difficult to do, but it actually wasn't. What I was concerned about is if I have a failure on the board, would they take it back if I broke it? But it actually is just glued in there, and so the heat pipe came out relatively easy. and I mounted the extreme shroud back on it. And at first I thought it didn't look that good, but I think it looks pretty good. It looks all right. I'm good with it. I'm going to leave it on there, and that's part of the mod for the build here. And then the other thing that you probably noticed is I've got some rigid tubing on here. So I've got a couple of silver shining enhanced rotary 90-degree multi-link adapters. So these are the new style that has basically two O-rings, one on the inside that receives the rigid tubing, and then you have another one that goes on the inside of this a compression kind of cap that seals it. So you have very good sealing, and it's a little more forgiving, I think, than the others, although I've never had a leak with the original style. And you will see in this build I am using both the original style and the new style here as well. Depends on what runs I need to make and where they're at. And then the other thing that I used was basically a 15mm extension right here at the base to bring it up so that I can run the tubing horizontally over to the top of the RAM block. So there she is. One of the things I love about case slab cases and this STH10 is the removable motherboard tray. So this also comes with feet when you buy one of these cases, that you could turn this into a bench top test bench if you wanted to. But I'm just going to go ahead and put the motherboard on here now. When it comes time to mount the the GPUs, I'll be able to just put them in the appropriate slots and then do the rigid tubing just like I did right here. So we'll go ahead and get this motherboard secured to the tray and keep on moving. Well, there you have it, guys. Tri SLI GTX 980s, all mounted with CSQ full cover blocks, and even have the LEDs installed and lit up. I don't know if you can see that from here, but everything's coming along good. So that's about it for this build log. I hope you liked, and if you did, please like and favorite, and if you're so inclined, please subscribe. That's it from Ron Zanut. Thanks for watching.